are alive in this extraordinary time. It's a time where we're hearing about these amazing things going on in the world. And the challenge is, if you have the most powerful tools in the planet, if you've got all the money in the planet, if you've got all of the friends and family, but you don't know what to do with it, what matters? Right? So I want to talk to you today about your massively transformative purpose and your moonshots. It's the fuel. It's what gives you purpose. It's what wakes you up in the morning. It's what gives you a target to work towards. It's what gives us as humans the ability to do extraordinary, insane, fucking off the charts things. I'll drop an F-bomb to get people woken up. All right. So your impact, and I think we're all impact-driven here. I'm sure some people are here to create wealth. Some people are here for other reasons. But ultimately, we're all sort of here to make an impact on the planet. And I think that really brings the SU community together. And your impact is, I believe, a function of your passion and your purpose. What does that mean? It means, I think, the most incredible force in the universe. Excuse me for my language. I'm seeing some kids here in the audience. Oh. Okay, let's get back to impact here. I think that the most forceful, incredible force in the universe is human passion. It's dedication. It's the mother or father who refuses to give up. It's the person who is just dedicates their life. And whenever I greet a group of alumni, of graduate students for our Global Solutions program or our executives to SU, I ask them a question and I say, how many of you know what your purpose in life is? Why are you on this planet? And incredibly, only about half the people actually can speak their purpose. And what I stop and I say is, it's fine, it's okay. But your purpose now, during this executive program or during this summer program, is not to learn about AI, it's not to learn about digital manufacturing, it's to find your passion and your purpose. Because ultimately, that's the fuel that drives you every day to do the things that you care about. And you can have the most incredible rocket engine on the planet, but if it's got no guidance and navigation, it's just going to spin out of control and be wasted energy. Right? Work is force over distance, and it's the directionality of that distance. So I want to talk to you about two things today. I want to talk to you about how do you find your massively transformative purpose? And we're going to actually go through an exercise. So I hope you have a pen. If you don't have a pen, ask around and find an extra pen. I'm going to ask you to actually do some work. I'm going to pause and have you do some work and then pair up with people and share it. And besides your massively transformative purpose, we're also going to identify some moonshots. I run a program every year called Abundance 360. It's in Beverly Hills. It's 3 days on stage. I'm on there for 3 days with 400 CEOs running $10 million to $30 billion companies. And I have a few basic themes I repeat, and I've committed to running Abundance 360 for 25 years. Right? So we're in year 8 of 25, and I ask people to come back every year. You don't have to, but I invite people to come back every year. And every year, it's about taking the journey forward. And what you're hearing here at SU's Global Summit is it's about the mindset. Your massively transformative purpose may change over time. I've had 3 I'll share with you. Your moonshots will change over time. And it's okay for them to change. It's not okay not to know. And so I'm going to invite you during the course of this next hour to come up with a massively transformative purpose, to come up with a moonshot or two. Not that it's going to be the correct one or the final one, but it's one that you can test drive. You can talk to your kids, your mom, your dad, your partner, your business partners about it. So let's talk about a massively transformative purpose. Massively meaning it has gravitas in your mind, in your heart, in your soul. Transformative in that it's not about the world being the same. It's not about you being the same. It's not about you being the same in conversations with people. It's about something that is fundamentally different. And it's about purpose. It's about that thing that drives you. When you're clear about your massively transformative purpose, when you hear about a piece of technology, you make a quick judgment call. Does this technology help me or not? Right? We're in this period of extraordinary abundance of information. We're being blasted by information all the time. We are in a squanderable abundance of information. And you can drown in information. And if you're not clear, if you don't have filters about what is useful to you and what is a nuisance, how do you distinguish? And having a massively transformative purpose, something that is meaningful in your life, means that you can filter those things that are valuable or not valuable. And so I am always, well, I'll come back to that. So here are some massively transformative purposes of different forms. And you can have an MTP for yourself, and I hope you do. You can have one for your family, and we have a number of people from our Exponential Families group. A family can have an MTP, what we stand for as a family, right? And you can separately have it for a company. And it's not a brand statement, and it's definitely not to increase shareholder value. Bullshit, excuse me again, but I should put an R rating on my presentation. It's about having something that's meaningful and purposeful in the world. It's going to make the world a better place. And I think one of the things we stand for here at SU is about use of these powerful technologies to make the world better, to solve grand challenges, to uplift humanity. So these are some strong MTPs. Organize the world's information. Whose is that? Google's, right? So I'm there with Larry Page after the DARPA's Grand Challenge when the autonomous cars were coming online, and Larry says, I want to get involved in that, right? And he saw autonomous cars with their LiDAR, their laser imaging radars, driving down the roads, imaging everything on. And so it's clear that Google's MTP of organizing the world's information, millions of cars imaging everything along the sides of the road, is a way that you can get the data to organize the world's information. It was one other lens to gathering information. So is that inside Larry's and Google's MTP? Yes, it was, right? Ideas worth spreading. Whose is that? TED, right. Positively impact the lives of 1 billion people. Thank you. All right. building a bridge to abundance. Well, it's XPrize and A360 for sure. Inspire and guide the transformation of humanity on and off the world, on and off the earth. That's mine, right? So my MTP, and I say it every day in the shower, I shout it. I see, hear, feel, and know that the purpose of my life is to inspire and guide the transformation of humanity on and off the earth. And I feel it, I know it. It is a filter by which I decide whether or not I do things. MTPs, they're uniquely yours. Yes, someone else can have it, but you feel, you didn't copy someone's, it's yours. It's in your heart and your soul, right? It's driven with emotional energy, meaning it's something that is wonder, it's excitement. It might come out of pain. Emotion is the fuel that drives us humans. It's something you're willing to commit to your life to. Now, I want to be clear that we're going to go after writing down some MTPs and sharing it with a thought partner and neighbor. Today, if you have one, amazing. If you don't, this is a test drive. You're going to keep it. You're going to maybe share it tonight at the event tonight. You might share it at home. If it feels right, keep it. If it doesn't feel right, discard it. It is only valuable in that it's of service to you. Does that make sense? It's of service to you in that it gives you clarity. It's a filter. It gives you energy. It drives you, right? It inspires you and your team and your family. So your MTP for your company inspires your company. It's on your door. It's on the walls. And it helps attract top talent to your company. It's a really important one. At the end of the day, we're always competing for talent, for the best people in the world. And if you are competing just on salary, that's not enough anymore, especially today. People want to join companies where they know they are part of a mission to make the world a better place, to change the world. And I think that having a clear MTP and being able to represent to your employees, this is who we are, this is what we stand for, this is why we are doing what we do, is so important. I mean, you all know this. You've had people leave your companies not for salary, but because there's more fulfillment someplace else. Or you've been able to recruit somebody to your company because of who you are and what you stand for and the purposeful, meaningful life. So these are attributes for your MTP. We'll come back to these. I shared my MTP already. So we're going to go through a process here, and we're going to take time. If you would open up your first page of your piece of paper, of your tools here. I'm going to look at that diagram there, and we'll come back to this on moonshots. Do you see that large light blue area there? I think of that as your massively transformative purpose. It's a canvas. It's a canvas for your life. And those dark blue dots are going to be your moonshots. And so within the canvas of what your MTP is, which is a general canvas, it's generalized, it's not specific. It could be to provide, safety and education to teenage women around the world. It could be to help men live a moral and ethical life. It could be whatever your MTP is. You then will have moonshots within the context of that. Within that canvas, we're going to pick some very specific things that you're going to do that are meaningful to you, that are powered by your MTP, that you can measure your progress towards hitting those things. All right, so we're going to go through 4 steps. Step 1, what is a problem area or opportunity that fills you with emotional energy, wonder, excitement, pain, that is meaningful to you, that's worth dedicating your life to? And what I'd like to do is ask you to jot down a few thoughts there. You don't have to have the right answer. This is not a right or wrong. You might jot down 4 or 5 areas. But what is something, again, the emotional connection is really important. It's not a cognitive feeling. It's emotional. For me, my childhood wonder of space, right? My incredible awe of where humanity is going in this transformation ahead, right? My desire to help guide entrepreneurs. These were things that were driving me. So please, on step 1, we're going to give you 2 minutes and jot down some thoughts. Don't worry about being right or wrong. Jot down a few thoughts along those lines, please. Let's go to step number 2. In finding your MTP. A lot of times, your massively transformative purpose can come from a place of childhood innocence, of what did you want to do when you were a kid before the world told you you could not, right? So my first MTP was to help open the space frontier for humanity. That was my first massively transformative purpose. It's changed. I've had 3 MTPs over my life. And it's okay that it changes. It's right for you now, not maybe a year from now or 30 years from now. So when I was a kid, I still do, I wanted to be an astronaut. So what did you want to do when you were a child? Here's another way to find a massively transformative purpose. And you have to allow yourself to be honest before your mother, your father, your teacher, the world told you that's a crazy idea or not right for you. What is the joy, the passion, the emotional energy? What did you want to do as you were a child? Another tool for finding your MTP, if I were to give you $1 billion, and I'd love to do that, that would mean I would have the billion to give you, but, and I said, here's $1 billion, you can't spend it on yourself, but spend it to make the world a better place. Where would you spend it? What would you do with it? These are meant to be hints, sort of fishing bait to pull out of your heart, your soul, that massively transformative purpose. So I want to get 2 minutes, jot down your thoughts. All right, step number 3. I'd like to put some action into your massively transformative purpose. I want you to write down a few powerful verbs that describe what you want to do. You want to solve, you want to inspire, you want to transform, you want to organize, you want to eliminate, you want to impact. These are just some verbs. You can add others, but in the area that you want to make a difference, in the purpose that you want to have, what is it? What are some verbs, 3 or 4 verbs that are meaningful to you? For me, it was inspire and guiding. I love inspiring people. Hopefully that comes, what I say here comes from the heart. I hope you feel that, right? And when I'm at A360 or SU guiding, this is where the meta trends are going. It's what I see and what I do, it all stems from that. What are verbs meaningful to you? Next, and again, please, you can take this home and try and play with more time if you like. All right, the 4th step here is to write down 1, 2, or 3. I made space for 3 MTPs. You can write down 1, that's fine. I want to give you space to explore a couple of different directions if you have more than one direction. And here's my goal. It's not a treatise. It's not a book. It's not a page. It's a line or two. It's something that serves you, easily remembered, to inspire and guide the transformation of humanity on and off the earth. I can say it. I've memorized it. I repeat it. It's a mantra. So what I'd like you to do is just take 3 minutes. If you would, I'd love you to choose one, and then I want you to pick a person to your left or right or in front or behind. If there's an odd man or woman out, you can do it in 3, but we're going to take 6 minutes, and I'd like you to share what you have or share the ideas leading to what you have. 3 minutes each. Let's begin the first person now. When I'm doing this at Abundance 360, we do this over a number of hours. It's not this quick an exercise. This is more just sharing. But the amount of energy in the room is amazing, right? And this is just touching the beginning. And I want to invite you to think this evening about sharing this. If somebody was here in the room with you, fantastic. If no one's in the room, say, hey, listen, I want to try this on you, right? Because once you're clear about your massively transformative purpose, you know that you have the tools, technologies, and treasures to change the world. But again, when you hear about an amazing technology, when you hear about an amazing person, you can very quickly, in this incredible age of abundance, filter amazing, but not my purpose. Incredible, but my friend's purpose. Let me introduce you. And also, really importantly, when you share your MTP with people and you share what it is you want to do in the world, and they know, they'll pingle to you, right? That's the beautiful part. It's like, oh my God, my friend Scott over here has this amazing thing. Let me introduce you to him, right? That situation is amazing. You get a community of individuals. It's all about community. Until we have, human level AI, and we'll talk to Ray about when that's coming. 10 years, is he still predicting that? We'll find out. Until we have all of that, people are still front and center in every solution. Okay, That MTP, or that area of the MTP, or that glimpse of your MTP is the canvas upon which your moonshots take place. I want to talk about moonshots. A moonshot is going 10 times bigger where the rest of the world is going 10% bigger. You know, we've seen amazing things happen in the last few decades. We've seen what Elon has done with Tesla, right? I mean, whether or not Tesla survives as a company, and I love my Teslas, it changed the world. His mission was to go from a carbon-based to an electric. He's succeeded. There's, you know, if you talk to Ramez Nam here in our energy chair, there's $300 billion being spent by all the automotive companies to electrify their fleets to catch up with Tesla. He's won that battle, right? And what he's done with SpaceX, nothing less than extraordinary. Moonshots, what Jeff Bezos has done. At A360 this year, I'm bringing Martine Rothblatt. If you don't know her, she's the highest paid female CEO. She's a dear friend of both Ray's and mine. She's on her 6th moonshot. Her daughter had a deadly disease, pulmonary fibrosis. And Martine had just started 2 satellite companies, satellite radio and XM radio. And I was in that area, knew nothing about medicine or biology, found out that her daughter had this disease, resigned, took the money that she had, started with a high school textbook, and set out as her moonshot to cure her daughter's disease. And now that's an insane moonshot. But she did it, and she built a $5 billion pharma company as a result of that work. Right? So a moonshot, again, is going 10 times bigger when the rest of the world is going 10% bigger. Now, we're going to talk about what are your moonshots. And we're going to talk about them within the context of your MTP, because moonshots take energy, they take fuel, they take emotional fuel. It can't be something that you're just, it's kind of neat, it's kind of a fun place to go and experiment and make money. BS, I'm learning. BS. I'm not sure what that stands for, but it's a place that you are angry. You're pissed off that some injustice exists. You're awestruck about what is possible. You're inspired beyond belief. That emotional energy drives you at 6 a.m. in the morning, at midnight at night, not to give up. It drives you to go further and faster than anybody else. That's what we're talking about in terms of the energy. I want to show you a video that I love. This is a video that a friend, Astro Teller, who is the captain of Moonshots. Astro runs X. It used to be called Google X. Created, this is about 6 or 7 years old, back when Google X was part of Google, before Google became Alphabet and Google X became X. Okay, anyway. But it's still very valid.
The actual moonshot is wonderful, inspirational, poetic, beautiful, involved great technical challenges, genuine heroism. It brought the world together. But think about the Polynesian islander on the dugout canoe, deciding one day they were going to go that way. No one had ever been that way before. No one even knew if there was anything that way before. It was amazing, and it changed the world.
People can set their minds to magical, seemingly impossible ideas, and then through science and technology, bring them to reality. And that then sets other people on fire, that other things that look impossible might be accomplishable.
Galileo is such a hero, in thinking big, and what he represents to me is both curiosity and wonder that humanity had, that pushed him and drove himself to invent and work on the first telescopes that allowed us to see the moon, and here we are.
These aviation pioneers were figuring it out as they went. No one really knew how to build an airplane, right? No one knew how to fly an airplane. It was amazing and crazy and wonderful, and they wanted to explore.
Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallory, who was to die on Mount Everest was asked why did he want to climb it. He said because it is there.
There's so many challenges in the world, and you can feel daunted by that, and sort of oppressed by that, or you kind of say, how might we think differently about this?
Everyone else in the world is working on that next 10%. If you can be the one that delivers that 10 times improvement, you have a chance to really change things.
If you want cars to run at 50 miles per gallon, fine, you can retool your car a little bit. But if I tell you it has to run on a gallon of gas for 500 miles, you have to start over.
You need a lot of courage in this work, and you need a lot of persistence. One of the things that's really critical is not only having the courage to keep trying every day or thinking big, even if you don't really 100% believe it's possible, like you might think this might be possible, have the courage to try. That's how the greatest things have happened.
You don't spend your time being bothered that you can't teleport from here to Japan, because there's a part of you that thinks it's impossible. Moonshot thinking is choosing to be bothered by that.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Humanity's progress has been a series of amazing, audacious things, from the very small and personal up to the great, big, and grand. And we are a species of moonshots. And to me, that's like the really amazing, poetic, and inspirational thing.
I think our ambitions are a glass ceiling on what we can accomplish.
When you find your passion, you're unstoppable. You can make amazing things happen. It's been true through all of history.
I believe in the human spirit, and I believe that there are always going to be crazy people who will get out of bed one morning and say, you know what? I think I can build a space elevator, and let's go and do it. But I think that if we become afraid to take these great big risks, we stop inspiring people. We stop achieving things. And the biggest nightmare scenario is that we won't have what it takes to solve the really big challenges.
When Kennedy said that we would put a man on the moon, it's about the fact that he said, we don't know how to do this yet, and we're gonna do it anyway. And that sends chills up everybody's spine. Because if that happens, what couldn't we do?
What couldn't we do? Amazing, huh? What couldn't we do? There's very little we can't do within the laws of physics. And even then, we're relearning them. Thank you to my AV team for your support on that. Seriously. The difference between an MTP and a moonshot, as I said, your MTP is a canvas. It's an area that is meaningful to you, the child within you, the little girl or boy. It's something that inspires you, that wakes you up. And your moonshot is a target. It is, for me, my first MTP was to make the human race a multiplanetary species, to open up the space frontier. And one of my first moonshots was I wanted to build a zero-gravity airplane that would take people on parabolic flights, because I had heard NASA had been doing it for 30 years, and they would not let me on their airplane. It took me 11 years. 11 years. I had to fight the entire FAA to get there. I kid you not. I literally was telling the FAA officials, listen, I'm not going to give up. You're going to die or retire before I give up getting permission to fly zero-G, these airplanes in these parabolic flights without your seatbelts on. And it finally was Marion Blakey, the head of the FAA administrator, who said, yes, we should do this. And then I had a chance to fly Professor Stephen Hawking into zero-G, and it was extraordinary, one of my proudest moments of my life. That was my first space MTP that I wanted to do, my first moonshot. My second one was about opening up space travel with commercial suborbital flights, and that became the XPrize, right? And I'm going to use that as my example. And these were moonshots. These were very specific numbers. So let's talk about why a moonshot's important. So first of all, when you're shooting for 10 times better, which is 1,000%, right, versus 10%, right, you approach a problem in a radically different way. Remember when Astro said, if you're trying to go from 30 miles per gallon to 50 miles a gallon, you can finagle, you can retune, you can get maybe more aerodynamic. But you want to go to 500 miles per gallon, it's a clean sheet of paper, right? It's what Elon did with Falcon and Falcon 9 reusability. Clean sheet of paper, brand new approach. Didn't try and take the existing rockets and make them incrementally better. You don't get there. You start from first principle thinking, what is possible? right? Second, when you attack a problem as though it were solvable, even if you don't know how to solve it, you'll be shocked at what you came up with. When you know in your heart that from the laws of physics something is possible, it's just we haven't figured it out yet, then you become creative. You're unleashed. You're not trying to take what exists and make it a little bit better. Third, 10x versus 10% is 100 times more worth it, and it's never 100 times harder. These are the reasons that we should consider taking on moonshots. Not everything in your life being in a moonshot, but something in your life should be a moonshot. So the question is, what is your moonshot? Do you have one? Does your family have one? Does your company have one? Should you have one? That's what we're here to explore. So what I have here is a moonshot planner. I'm going to walk through this because we don't have that much time, and I want to spend a few minutes on Q&A, but you can complete this at home. But let me give you the example. So first, you're going to come up on your own, take this with you, obviously, of what is your 5-year moonshot. It should be clear, objective. It should use specific numbers and dates. Why should it have specificity? Because you need to know whether you hit it or not. Right? Without a target, you'll miss it every time. Real clarity about your target. So I'll give you my example from the XPrize. I want to create a $10 million prize to inspire private companies to build spaceships to carry me and my friends into space. The ship should be able to reach 100 kilometers altitude. I picked that very specific number of 100 kilometers after thinking about it for a while. Not 100 miles, not 50 miles, 100 kilometers. It should carry 3 people, so there was a pilot and 2 paying passengers, or an autopilot and 3 very brave passengers. And it should make 2 flights within 2 weeks, so that the price of the second flight is the fuel and the touch labor. It means, so there were very specific numbers here. And these specific numbers allowed me to understand whether or not I was hitting my moonshot. That's the first subject. You should call your shot. What is it? What is your moonshot for your company, for yourself, for whatever it is? The second thing I'm going to ask you to think about as you fill this out is, what is a concrete, measurable first-year goal? So if we graph this, along the bottom is years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and along the top is percentage completion. Here's your moonshot in yellow, right? 5 years out. But in this exponential world, it's not a straight line. You're not trying to get there in a linear fashion, right? If you're doubling every year, in year 4 you're at 50%, and then 25%, and 12%, and 6%. So in year 1, right, you're not asking yourself to be 20% there. What is a first step? Where could you get in year 1? Can you describe that? So for me, my first year goal, it took me longer than this, for sure, was to get the support from NASA, the aviation community, to raise $1 million in capital towards the XPrize, right? That was my first year goal. I probably made it in the 3rd or 4th year. And by the way, you're going to be an optimist, hopefully, and that's okay. But this, if I were writing this down historically, this would have been my sort of first year goal. Again, it's very clear. It's an amount of money. It's support from particular organizations and individuals. All right. The third step is, can you in the next 30 days do something to test or de-risk your idea? So you don't want to spend 4 or 5 years working on something which someone else could prove to you is physically impossible, or that no one will ever support. So how do you spend 30 days de-risking it? So for me, what I ended up doing in the early days of this concept of the XPrize was I went and I gave a talk at the National Space Society filled with all the top space experts, and I pitched my idea. And I asked for brutal feedback. I was on stage a couple years ago interviewing Elon at a Goldman Sachs event, and we're talking about something, and I said, how do your friends feel about what you're doing? He goes, well, my friends tell me how great it is. My best friends tell me all the things wrong with it. Right? And it's true. So you need to invite people to give you critical feedback, and you have to measure whether that feedback is or is not valid. Is it jealousy? Or they just don't understand? Or is it valid feedback? So this is what I did to de-risk it. And at the end of this, I got enough constructive feedback to feel that there was a there. And then finally, what evidence can you provide that Moonshot is achievable? For me, I did research on the history of prizes. I mean, there's so many amazing incentive competitions that have changed the world that none of us knew about. The invention of plastic, the invention of canning, of margarine, of all kinds of things. And then I typically, at Abundance 360, will say, okay, what is one action you can take right now? Like right now. I'm going to take 5 minutes, write an email, send a text, set up a meeting, right? Because the journey starts with the first step. And I really hammer my CEOs at A360, this is not about entertainment. If you're entertained and you do nothing, it's a waste of your time and my time. This is about you taking action in your life. And so, for me, I went out and I talked to 3 incredibly close friends, Jim Burke, Greg Marinak, and Mark Arnold, as the first action. And I pitched them this idea. And I said, I want you to be advising me on this. And I enrolled them in it. And that action was my first step on this journey. So I'm not going to go through the process of this. I should have scheduled an hour and a half for this session. But I want you to think about this idea of a 5-year moonshot planner. It could be a 10-year planner, depending on where you are, but tendency is 5 years is far enough away out where you're willing to take some risk in your ideas. What I'd like to do is share with you a really important learning I had of when you're going for something audacious and big and bold, which I hope for all of you, the moonshots you take on have that characteristic. And believe me, most moonshots fail, but I'll tell you why they fail. They fail because you give up before they're achieved. A lot of the things I've done, including the XPrize, including Zero G, including SU, including everything, are overnight successes after 10 or 11 years of hard work. All right. And all of you have your own stories. When you're driven from your heart and your soul and your passion, you don't stop. If it's driven from a desire to make a quick buck, or as something you're doing for your mother, your father, your teacher, your friend, there's not the emotional energy to keep going. But it comes from your heart and your soul. At 3 a.m. in the morning, you push. So how do you launch your moonshot? So the XPrize, these were the rules. Was it going to be a $10 million prize? It was going to be privately funded. I didn't want the government of China or India or the US winning this thing. I wanted it to be a private company. It had to carry 3 people. It had to go to 100 kilometers. It had to fly twice in 2 weeks. And so I didn't know who was going to fund the prize at the time. That's why, in fact, the name XPrize was there. X was a variable to be replaced by the name of the donor. You can't make this stuff up. It was my Pulitzer, my Nobel, my Orteig. I'll introduce you to her in a moment. But when you announce a prize, or you announce any idea, any big idea, in our minds, we humans have what I call a line of credibility. If we hear about an idea below the line of credibility, that idea dies. Like if the kid next door to me, who's 14 years old, says he's flying to Mars next month, I'm like, that's not credible, and I dismiss it out of hand. And then we have a line of credibility. And if something is born above the line of credibility, like, for example, if I were to say myself and Ray are planning to work on an AI that we're going to launch to Mars, you might say, oh, that's interesting, until you hear news that discredits it, and then it's not credible anymore. Or you hear it, and you hear more news that makes it credible, and it's like, wow, that's really happening. And then in our minds, we have a line of super credibility. And it's a very meaningful line because when you hear something that's born above the line of super credibility, you say, oh my God, that's amazing. How can I be involved? Instantly, you give it credibility, and that announcement owns neurons in your brain, and you're convinced by virtue of who said it, how it was said, where it was said, and what was said. And so whenever you're announcing something big and bold, announcing it above this line of super credibility is really important. So this was the day in St. Louis. It was May 18th of 1996. I had raised about $500,000, $25,000 at a prize, at a shot, trying to get to $10 million. And we made a very bold decision, which was we were going to announce the XPrize, this $10 million prize anyway. Not having the $10 million, not having any teams. And we were going to spend the $500,000 we had raised on the announcement event. I had 2 board members resign on the spot. Now, I didn't lie. I didn't tell people we had it. I just didn't allude to the fact that we didn't. On stage with me, I had not 1 astronaut, but 20 astronauts. I had the Lindbergh family, Burt Rutan. I had Dan Golden, the NASA administrator. I had the deputy administrator of NASA. And we announced this competition. Hundreds of news cameras, reporters, front page around the world, $10 million competition to fly into space announced. And teams started registering. And I started getting phone calls from the teams because I was going out and raising money now, $25,000 prize. We met with 100+ CEOs, and everyone said, isn't someone going to die trying to win this thing? And why isn't NASA doing this? Can anyone actually pull it off? And it was no, 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 no. And then one day I met this amazing woman and man, Anusha and Hamid Ansari. Anusha and Hamid had just sold their company called Telecom Technologies to Sonos Networks, and she was featured in the wealthiest 40 women under 40. And in her bio, it said that her dream was to fly on a suborbital flight into space. And I made it my mission to track this woman down because I had never heard of anybody thinking about suborbital flight like this, and she clearly had the capital. It was her first meeting when she came back from a 6-month vacation in Hawaii after selling her company. And they said yes on the spot. She went on to fly to the space station as the first private female astronaut. She is now the CEO of the XPrize Foundation, and I'm so honored and pleased to have her here in the room with me. Please welcome Anusha Ansari. So lucky to have this amazing CEO come back to the XPrize as the CEO, as I serve as executive chairman there. And the prize worked. 26 teams around the world, $100 million going after this $10 million prize. It's now hanging in the Smithsonian right next to the Spirit of St. Louis that inspired it in the first place. Richard Branson came in and has committed nearly $1 billion to commercializing the technology. I've got my flight, my ticket to fly into space. We have an incredible board of directors and trustees from Ray Kurzweil and Larry Page and Jim Cameron and Elon and Dean Kamen, who are funding our prizes and supporting our work. We've launched over $150 million of prizes, another $200 million in development. I'm going to wrap because we're out of time. 2 things. One, if you'd like these slides, if you send an email to keynote@diamandis.com, my server will send you back all these slides. Share them. They're meant to be free. They're meant to go and help people get their MTPs and their moonshots. If Abundance 360 is something that you're interested in, there is a card here. Fill it in and handed in the back of the room. This is the same price as an executive program. I run this program. It's 3 days every January, 19, 20, and 21. I'm on stage for 3 days talking about stuff like this, transforming the world. We have an extensive application process and an interview process for everybody. 80% of the room renews. We open up another 20%. You can skip the application process, but you'll be required to go through an interview. And again, you can turn those in the back of the room with Kelly. If we can get the lights up, if it's possible. We are out of time. So I will be here through tomorrow. I thank you for your time. I truly hope that this was meaningful for you. I think a world lit up with their MTPs, people taking moonshots is how we make the world a better place. Enjoy the rest of the summit. Thank you, everybody.